Hello, and welcome back to Conscious Caregiving with L&L, where we're tackling the tough conversations. The topic this month is seniors and traveling. Welcome everyone to Conscious Caregiving with L&L. I'm Lance Slatton, co-hosted with my friend Lori LeBay. Lori, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, yes, I'm Lori LeBay with Alzheimer's Speaks, and I'm thrilled to partner with Lance on this program. I am the founder of Alzheimer's Speaks and then also Dementia Map, which is a global resource directory. And I know you're going to learn a lot today.
Thank you, Lori. Jan Dougherty.
Good morning. I'm Jan Dougherty, and I'm happy to be here speaking as a nurse, an advanced practice nurse in the field of Alzheimer's disease related dementia for over 30 years. And over those 30 years, as I worked directly with people living with dementia and their care partners, what frequently came up is this desire to travel. And so subsequently, I wrote a book so that people could have the opportunity to travel longer and better.
Thank you, Jan. Pastor Dave Johnston.
Hello. Yeah, my name is Dave Johnston. So I'm a retired pastor. And right now, my wife and I own Jeannie's Journeys, which is a tour company that takes seniors all over the world. Average age is probably about 70 of our travelers. And in addition to that, as a pastor, I was a chaplain in a senior residence. And also both of my parents lived into their 90s, and my mother had dementia. So I'm very familiar with working with seniors with memory loss and dementia and so forth.
Thank you. Lori Scher.
Hi, my name is Lori Scher, and I am a person living with dementia. But that doesn't generally stop me from traveling. COVID did, but my dementia does not. I'm on the executive board of directors for Dementia Action Alliance and deal with a lot of people living with dementia and help them through their journey with different strategies and tips. One of them being how to travel and safe travel, and share with them the experience that I've learned through my traveling. Since I had dementia, I've done a lot of traveling, including going to South Africa. And I love to travel, and I'm going to continue to find whatever ways I can to continue to do that.
Well, thank you so much, Lori. Lynn Smith.
Hello, I'm Lynn Smith, and I'm with the Hidden Disability Sunflower Program. And I'm so happy to be here today. Thank you very much for inviting me. And I'm here to help create awareness about the Hidden Disability Sunflower Program and how it can help people with dementia and Alzheimer's.
Well, thank you. And I know this is an important program, and I'm anxious to share that with our viewers and listeners. I want to start today because Conscious Caregiving, we say we tackle the tough conversations. And, Lori, you had mentioned you still like to travel, living with dementia. COVID was the only thing that stopped you. And so today's topic is all about seniors and traveling. I want to start off with Jan Dougherty and discuss the issue of traveling with Alzheimer's. Why is travel important, Jan, for older and disabled adults and their family caregivers?
Thank you, Lance, for that question. And I will tell you, it's about connections. Travel is about staying connected to the people and places we love. It's absolutely imperative to our well-being. And we know from studies actually done by AARP in older adults that travel improves our physical health because we move more, we tend to eat better, we tend to sleep better, we're having meaningful engagement with the people we really care about. And by the way, travel to see family and friends is kind of the number one reason everyone travels, all age groups, but it just brings such improved health and well-being. And even for the person living with dementia and further into their disease process, it's about being, it's about enjoying, it's about those special moments. And yes, while there might be some forgetting of those gatherings, it doesn't take away from what we have now and what we can enjoy now. And I think, unfortunately, there's this myth that when someone's diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease or related dementia, that travel needs to stop. And so, Lori, I'm delighted you're here to really speak as a person living with this condition to say, it is possible, it's feasible, right? It's just new strategies that we put into place to make it happen.
Absolutely. Well, why is it important in creating successful travel or visits for both the person with the disability or dementia and the family or the caregiver alike. It's going to benefit both parties, I'm assuming.
It certainly can. And I think that the two things that I think are essential in creating successful travel for the person with a dementia or another disability and for the family that's involved in it or friends is one is setting realistic expectations. So the reality is as we age, things change. And what we were able to do a year ago might be different than where we are now, but that doesn't mean it's impossible, but we have to really embrace kind of where are we now functionally, cognitively, and what is it that's going to do to best support that sort of travel, right, to make it happen. And then I think careful planning is really needed to really make sure that we're allowing ourselves the added time, the added rest periods, the added strategies for family and friends who might be joining in this travel or receiving us, so that they have realistic expectations, so they know how to respond, so they know how to be helpful. Because without laying those three things out, I will tell you, something will run amok. And unfortunately, tensions run high for all travelers, right? They just run high. It's stressful because we're out of our element. And then, unfortunately, relationships can suffer or people stop traveling long before they needed to simply because one of those three things weren't met, right? Realistic expectations, careful planning, and then communication of needs. That's we all need help at some point, and it's good that people know what your touch points are and how they can help you.
Right, absolutely. And Jan, I think a lot of times families don't think it is possible to take a trip with a loved one with dementia or with a disability, or just the thought of it might prevent them or preclude them from doing so because of all that they think is factored into it. So let's talk about, what do these families and these caregivers need to know in order to obtain that services that could help alleviate some of that fear or, the stress or added obstacles for successfully and safely taking a loved one with dementia or a disability on a trip. And I'm thinking, just airports, waiting in those lines and things like that. Would you share some of that with us?
Yeah, so I think, the travel industry, this is an area that I think they're playing catch up with now, to think about how is it we accommodate people with all kinds of special needs and what does that look like? So first of all, I think it's important that our caregivers out there know, or people living with dementia, there's help. So that's number one, right? Good news, there's help. But how you find the help can be different than what we think. So oftentimes, we've all been driven to the web to do self-booking. I'm glad David's here because this is where I say a travel agent can be hugely helpful. There's this category called accessibility. So even with the airlines, you're going to have to look under accessibility, or some will call it special needs. And oftentimes, but they focus more on physical disability than things like dementia or autism actually is pretty well covered. They got a lot of loud advocates, right, doing work in that area. But there's help. So if we know that and we can plan on that, that can be helpful. In terms of airports, I think it's essential to look at an airport website of where you're flying out, where you're connecting, where you're landing, so you know where these special services are. So, for example, many of the families that I work with are older, disabled, have dementia. They need to use a family restroom. Well, family restrooms can be very difficult to find in many airports. So it's nice to know that where that is. So if it's only pre-security, it would be important to use that family restroom, because post-security now, if there's no family restroom, for example, that could be challenging. It's important to know where are quiet locations. So if you have a longer layover, which sometimes will happen, then perhaps you know where to go so that there's less stimulus in a particular area. So I think knowing what those services are and how they can be helpful will really lend itself to a lot less stressful situation.
Thank you, Jan. I think those are great tips and, great advice. And, hopefully, families, they're not afraid to take that step, right? For their own benefit, but also for their loved ones. And just appreciate your time here today. And now I'll turn it over to Lori.
I just wanted to make a comment on Jan's. My family did a trip with my dad who had brain cancer, my mom with dementia. We went on a cruise. And it was one of the most fabulous experiences that we had. And I'm so excited to do this show today because I think it's going to make traveling so much easier for so many others out there because there was a lot we didn't know. But one of the things I think that people do have to keep in mind sometimes when you're traveling with a senior, depending on what type of disability or health issue that they're dealing with, they may need some extra care. And sometimes families say, well, we'll share all that. And you need to know your family ahead of time if that's really going to happen or not. Or have one person like myself who was just kind of the main person with that. And, you find different things to do when something might be a little bit more strenuous and stuff, but you can still make, just beautiful memories and have absolutely a wonderful time. I also just wanted to mention when you talked about looking at the airport, websites, or if it's a train or a bus or whatever it is you're looking for the accessibility. If you are with the airports, I also recommend looking at the Dementia Friendly Airports Working Group website. It's an international group that has really pulled together a lot of great resources, and I'm sure we'll touch a little bit more on that a little bit later. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Dave. And so, Dave, I'm excited that you are here with us. What has your experience been with traveling with seniors?
Well, first of all, we've traveled with many thousands of seniors. We take hundreds of tours over the years, and we do have we have traveled with people that have dementia. I was just thinking, just last November, a year ago, I took a tour group to Israel. I take spiritual pilgrimages to Israel every year, and one of the gals she was at the early stages of dementia. Unfortunately, she was with her husband, but so she struggled to some degree. But it was really important having her husband there. So I fully agree that people that are struggling with dementia issues can travel. Of course, it depends upon what level of dementia they're at, and it's also how important it is to have somebody with you. Have could be a PCA, it could be a son, daughter, friend, your spouse. And it occurs to me, we recently also had on a recent trip, we had a gal struggling with dementia who brought a friend with her. But unfortunately, the friend was her same age and really wasn't able to help her as much. It was, and so it's really good to get somebody that can function in frankly, traveling is wonderful. It's incredibly fun. And I fully agree that people with dementia issues can travel. But it's really important to have somebody that's, that can fully function and help you along those on that tour. And we have had actually on occasions people that are struggling with dementia that have come by themselves, gone on by themselves on a tour, and that they did not, we did not know in advance, and so that has been a struggle at times. And so on our tours, all of our tours, we have we try to clearly lay it out. We have easy tours, which are, we say like maybe 1 to 2 miles of walking a day. Moderate tours, 3 to 5 miles of walking, and difficult tours, 5 to 7 miles of walking. And so we really try to, when people are registering for tours, we really try to talk to them and find out what their needs are, so they don't kind of slip through the cracks. We don't realize that they have special needs. So, and I was going to say also about TSA and airports. So when we take tour groups out, we really see ourselves as we are like taking a group of people, could be 10, 20, 30, 50, we're taking 55 people to the Mediterranean in a week. But we take them each step of the way, through the airports, on buses and cars and on the ship. And so we really see ourselves as guiding them and loving them and caring for them and helping them and answering all their questions. So that's pretty large groups. That's very challenging with 55, but we're, used to doing it. But and I was going to mention that yes, TSA, airports can be really challenging for people with dementia issues. And anytime there's stress, I think your dementia issues, they even increase more. They increase for all of us. For me as a senior, when I'm under stress, I have, it's memory issues. It's challenging for all of us. So that's why it's important to to go at a pace. We always take our seniors, we call it a senior pace. We don't rush them. And what occurs to me, it might not be good for somebody with dementia to go with a tour group of people in their 30s or 40s. Most of our travelers are in their 60s, 70s, and some in their 80s. So we go at a senior pace. And as we go through the airports, we take them one step at a time. We're right there for them. And I would encourage people, families that are family members that are going to be traveling and going through airports, maybe to check out getting clear, or global entry, or pre-check.
Okay.
And those are really good ways of getting through TSA quickly. But in addition to that, if you let people know, usually when you're in a TSA line, there's typically not somebody at the entryway, but if you let them know that you have that your person you're traveling with has dementia issues, they will help you. They'll do everything they can.
Okay.
And every airport is different. You have to realize that the TSA.
I want to jump in for a second there, because one, I just want to make sure that people know this isn't just dementia specific in terms of our conversation. I appreciate it, because I think what is good for dementia is good for everyone. But I mean, there's going to be people with, I'm sure you've run in with hips and knees or heart disease. I mean, there's all kinds of ailments that we have that are people aren't aware of on that. And so I think you've given us a lot of good things to note. I had done a tour with a travel agent that I thought I had vetted really well. And from the behind the scenes things, it didn't go as smoothly as I would have liked. So really knowing some of those things up front, I had asked questions about, it was mentioned about cruises, and you kind of go through that cattle prod, zigzag lines that are really long, and how do you get through those quickly? And a travel agent can actually expedite you through that if there's a disability, and we were told that was going to happen and didn't, or having wheelchairs there for people that have mobility issues. But I also know that one of the things that frustrates a lot of people with hidden disabilities is they're like, well, hop in the wheelchair, and they're like, I can walk. That's not my issue. And then that becomes offensive to them. So dealing with some of those things is really interesting as well. For your travel agency, what do you think differentiates you? Is it because you move at a senior's pace and that you understand their issues and you're asking questions ahead of time?
Yeah, I think that's really true. So we are seniors ourselves. I'm like 69, my wife's 68. And so we're used to traveling with seniors. We're used to being around seniors, but and so because we are seniors and we really understand their needs. And so we really work hard at providing for them and loving and caring for them. That's what you have to do. And I was just going to mention, you mentioned the handicapped issues, and that's very much a thing when we travel with seniors. So, for instance, when we went to Scotland last year with 45 people, and 8 of them had disabilities. 3 or 4 of them were in wheelchairs and in walkers. And so my wife made arrangements ahead of time at every airport, and we had to do several stops to get to Scotland. At every airport, there were wheelchairs waiting there for those people. And so she took care of that. So it's just a matter of being aware of their needs. And I don't want to sound like I'm being negative about maybe younger tour guides, but oftentimes when we're in our 30s, 40s, and 50s, we don't know what it's like to be 70, 80. We don't understand that. It's just, and so I think it's important when seniors are traveling that they are traveling with a tour group that has tour guides that understand seniors. And they could, of course, be younger people, especially younger people that have been around seniors a lot, but the needs of 30, 40-year-olds are much different than 70, 80-year-olds. So, yeah. And I think because we've worked with seniors all our life and all of our parents lived into their 90s, we're very much aware of their needs. So I think that's important.
Okay. Well, one of the things that we'll get to a little later, and in fact, Jan has a company where they're certifying senior companions, travel companions. And so that will kind of get over the hump of people understanding who they're serving and those types of things. Bottom line, what would be your advice that you would give to a senior or a family if they're thinking about traveling.
We do. We go around doing travel talks across the community in senior centers, and so we're talking. I was just in. Where was I yesterday? I was in Delano yesterday, Minnesota. So we go around almost on a weekly basis giving travel talks. And so we explain who we are, what we do, and we go at a senior pace, and it's senior travel. And I would say that if there is a person with special needs, let's say maybe some dementia issues or handicapped issues, we really try to talk it through with them, and then even to contact their family members. And I think it's true that oftentimes family members are like, no, my mom can't travel. She's 70, 75, my dad can't travel. And we need to let them know, yes, they can travel safely. They just need help.
Yeah.
They just need to travel. And so we try to communicate that.
And that's great advice. Carol Giuliani, who also works with Jan, was an attorney, and she kept hearing her clients, they were starting to age and they still wanted to travel, but their family didn't have time. And that's how she became a travel companion, which I think is really interesting. And, Jan and Carol are very successful in helping a lot of people still enjoy life. So thank you, Dave. Lance, I'm going to pass it back to you.
Thank you, Lori. I want to go to another Lori. Lori Scher, you're an international advocate living with dementia currently. I want to get a first-hand perspective from you on what are the challenges of traveling with dementia, Lori?
Thank you, Lance. For me, the challenges begin a couple weeks before I even travel. Trying to put my head together what clothes I need, how to pack. Okay, is it summer or winter where I'm going? What's the weather? What do I need? That's really challenging. It's not just putting things in a suitcase. It's planning out every single part of what I need to take with me. And then airports. Oh my golly, Atlanta airport. I won't go back there because Atlanta has these lights, and it throws my dementia like off kilter. So airports can be challenging, trying to follow the signs, trying to figure out where to go. And then when suddenly you get up to the gate and they've changed your flight, they canceled the flight, and now you're like, okay, how do I handle this? The whole packing. For me, I went to speak one time and I had white pants and purple underwear. So the whole concept of putting together what I'm going to take and then dealing with the airport, or if I'm not in the airport, dealing with how I'm going to handle when I get up in the morning and I'm confused. How am I going to handle looking at a suitcase and knowing what to put on was a huge challenge and caused a few meltdowns for me. Going to a hotel where the carpet's so busy, it throws my balance off. So I have to keep a walker with me when I travel. I was 55 when I was diagnosed with dementia, so I'm not a senior, but have many of the same challenges that y'all just talked about. My balance goes off. I get disoriented. I get lost. It's challenging. There are a lot of challenges, but I still travel because now I know how.
Well, let's explore that, because that was my next question. What strategies do you implement, and would you recommend to others in our audience who may either be dealing with dementia themselves or have family members or loved ones dealing with it to make their traveling easier?
First, start preparing 2 to 3 weeks ahead of time. And I use a program called AnyList, where I've pre-made a list of everything I need: toothbrush, toothpaste, hairbrush, curlers, whatever. And every time I travel, I print that list out and check off to make sure I have everything that I need. I also take each of my outfits are in a separate travel bag. And that includes my underclothing, pants, shirts, socks, whatever. They're in a totally separate travel bag. That way, when I wake up in the morning, if I'm confused, I don't have to think what goes with what. I pick up one of the travel bags, and there's my entire outfit in that bag. That has helped me immensely because I'm already agitated. I'm already stressed. I'm in a strange environment. So that helps me put things pre-planning and into perspective. Works very well. At the airport, as has been mentioned before, TSA, you need to call TSA. And yes, even though I may not need a wheelchair, they're going to put you in a wheelchair, and just suck it up and say they are going to put me in a wheelchair. But they're so helpful going through the checkout. When I'm in a herd of people, that's going to increase my dementia symptoms drastically. The other thing I'm going to recommend is always have earplugs. I don't leave home without my earplugs. And if you're going to an airport, sunglasses. You need them both because that helps cut down on the overstimulation of noise and vision. Like in Atlanta, the flashing lights, the sunglasses can somewhat cut down on those flashing lights. I also recommend that you become very familiar. If you're going to a conference or you're going someplace that you're staying in a hotel, always go the day before, go a day early, because that helps you to get oriented to your surroundings, where you're going, where you need to be. It helps you get to a comfort zone before whatever event it is you're attending. Even if we're going to a family's wedding, we try and get there the day before so that I can orient my head. My card. Again, don't leave home without it. I use this card. I hand it to everybody. It says, please be patient. I have dementia and may repeat questions, forget what you've told me, take longer to make a decision. And it has my husband's cell number on it. So that when I go up to the counter, the ticket line going into the plane, I hand it to them. When I get in the plane, I hand it to the head steward. This has helped me so many times. I had in one flight, I had one of the stewardesses came up to me and knelt beside me and she said, my mom has dementia and I'm here for anything you want. Just raise your hand and I'll be there. And even though I wasn't in first class, man, she was. She came right up to me. She said, you look like maybe a glass of wine would help you. And I said, yes, it would, you know. But this card just saying, I have dementia, be patient, it is absolutely needed. Bathrooms in the airport, make sure your loved one, if you go into the bathroom, if you can't find a family bathroom and you need to go in by yourself, make sure your loved one is standing right outside the door waiting for you. That's important because one time I walked out and didn't see him and I strolled away. So there's so many things. And on my website, which is Dementia Daze, DAZE.com, I write a lot about how to handle travel and how to handle dementia.
Lori, before I get to my next question, were you always a travel connoisseur, if you will, an advocate for traveling, or was it something you developed more time and appreciation for after your diagnosis?
No, I've always been a travel buff.
Okay.
My husband and I scuba dive, and part of scuba diving is going to all the islands and seeing all there is to see. I've been to South Africa 5 times now. I've been many places.
Wonderful.
It's my blood.
I want to ask you if you have a travel bucket list.
I would love to go back to Bonaire to go scuba diving one more time. I'm a little bit hesitant on that because my dementia has I've become more disoriented, and I'm afraid of the safety factor of diving with my husband. So yeah, I would love to do that again, but I'm not sure that that's going to be, I think it's too high a safety risk.
Well, you've done a couple of things that I will never do, and that is parachuting and skydiving. So kudos to you on that. Where did you parachute out of, and where were you skydiving at?
I was skydiving in Pennsylvania and parachuting in South Africa off of Table Mountain.
Wow.
I've done many other things. I also went into Mozambique to deliver food while they were still having a civil war. And that was very rewarding. So the adventure is part of who I am. Diving with the sharks and it's just part of what I am. It took our motorhome, and these are since I had my dementia. We took our motorhome and we did a 4-week tour of New England. And then we did 6 weeks going northwest across the United States. And we were going to finish up hitting all 49 states when COVID hit. So we had to cancel our trip.
Have you found that you and your husband using the motorhome, that has made traveling easier for you, or do you prefer that method?
Yes, absolutely.
Why is that?
Well, because it took us about a year to find the right motorhome. And we were looking for a motorhome that was set up similar to the way my dressers were.
Okay.
My dresser was laid out at home, and the kitchen similar to my kitchen at home. Of course, it's not perfect because it's much smaller, but we were trying to find something that would make sense to me. And before we travel in the motorhome, we always do two weekends we spend in the motorhome in the driveway to once again get me oriented to where everything is, get me used to the change in the environment. And that helps a lot because it's second home to me. So I feel safe and not so disoriented.
Yeah, I know. Our company, we take care of a lot of families here in Michigan whose loved ones do have dementia, and various stages and progressions. And I wanted to ask later, but I'll just ask it real quickly now to get your firsthand perspective. And you just touched on it with staying in the motorhome for 2 weeks prior to going on, the vacation to get acclimated. Have you found, or maybe any of the panelists, before I turn it back to Lori, that families, when they take their loved one out of their familiar surroundings and they're now in a hotel or wherever it may be that they're staying at, that there's going to be a regression, that their body has to have time to get reacclimated, if at all possible, to these new surroundings. Have you found that to be an issue for you, Lori?
Yes, absolutely. When I go to a hotel, again, at the desk, I hand them my card and I let them know, if you see me wandering, I probably really am lost. Give me some help. Hotels, so many of them look exactly the same. How do you tell one room from another? It's very hard. We moved from Pennsylvania to Alabama, and one night I just got up and I went looking for my neighbor in Pennsylvania, and I just went wandering the streets because even in my own home, it suddenly didn't look like my home. I didn't know where I was. So it took my husband a couple hours to find me. And when we were in New England, we were sitting out on a patio and I got up to go to the ladies' room. And when I came out, all I could remember was outside. So I left the restaurant and went outside. And my cousins and my husband spent a very long time trying to track me down. But in my head, it was outside. It wasn't on the patio, it was outside. So yes, it is very disorienting. And this is where you need to make sure that even though right now I look fine, it can change like that. I can turn around in a snap and suddenly I'm totally off and disoriented.
Well, we appreciate you. You're very inspirational, and thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today. Lori, I'll turn it back to you.
So we've got a couple of hands raised, so I'm going to go ahead and pull those in. Dave, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just wanted to comment quickly. So I agree that Lori, your story is incredibly inspirational, and it's wonderful to hear what you've done to be able to travel. But I want to say that with seniors, people we travel with, I should say, we always have a travel meeting a month in advance to answer all their questions. We discover that people with handicaps or seniors or people with dementia, they often have a lot of questions. And those questions need to be answered as much as possible. And that's why it's important to have a travel professional, or maybe, oftentimes children of people with handicapped or dementia, they've traveled a lot themselves. But we really try to answer the questions of seniors, because unanswered questions means stress. If you have uncertainty. And so that's just an important aspect, is to get those questions answered and have somebody that can do that. That was my input.
Okay, great. And Jan, you also had your hand up earlier too.
I was just going to respond to the RV motorhome. A client I worked with, when his wife was diagnosed with dementia, they had, very lofty goals of traveling the country, and their children were scattered throughout the U.S. And so they bought a motorhome because he understood how disorienting it was when they went right to different children's homes. So even though they were welcome in the home, it was confusing for his wife. And the beauty of the motorhome is he could park it in the driveway in the evening after the visit ended. They went home, right? Because home is the motorhome. So I think, it's not for everyone by any means, but I think it just shows the creativity, if you will, that caregivers possess to make these family connections and these travel dreams stay alive, and setting the realistic expectations to make it happen. So kudos to you, Lori.
Yeah, Lori is something else. I mean, I think of the detail and the adaption. I mean, she is just a chameleon in terms of making sure she's getting in the direction she wants to go. Her and her husband, Roy, again, check out her blog. We have that listed along with many other resources that we'll be highlighting here. But I loved, Lori, too, when you brought up the senses, because so many people don't realize how much the senses can be thrown off, from eyesight and depth perception and noise and lighting and just touch in a crowd and the overstimulation and things. So again, thank you. Lynn, I can't wait to get to you, because a lot of what's been touched on already, I think you guys have a great product that will help so many people living with invisible disabilities. So what I want you to talk about a little bit is your Sunflower program. What exactly is it, and why is it so important for people?
Yeah, thank you. The Sunflower program is a symbol that indicates that somebody has a non-visible disability. So something's going on with that person that you can't see. Similar to Lori, how she had her card that she hands out. The symbol is an indicator that, hey, there's something going on. They might need a little bit of time, patience, kindness, or help. So what we do is the airport joins the program, or the hotel joins the program, or the travel agencies, or the different groups or companies involved join the program, and then they get training. Now, the training's just a little video that says kind of what is a non-visible disability, telling you, everybody that might have a hearing loss doesn't necessarily have a hearing aid, or somebody that has visual or low vision doesn't necessarily have a cane or a dog with them. So just to make them a little bit more aware, if you never know what somebody's going on, and there's hundreds of these kind of conditions that go on with people. And as we age, everyone is going to at some point have have some sort of non-visible disability, whether it be anything that's a cognitive issue, could be a traumatic brain injury, could be autism, it could be cerebral palsy, muscular sclerosis, anything that's not outwardly visible. So what this does is just say, hey, there's something going on. Now, there are customized cards that you can get that clip onto the lanyards that we have. One of the products that are most popular with the airports are these lanyards. The cards will clip on, and they kind of serve the same purpose that Lori's card did, as it says, I have Alzheimer's, I have dementia, I am a caregiver. So we have caregiver cards, because one of the things we like to stress is that they should not be separated from their caregiver. especially when going through TSA or any sort of line. Don't separate them. Make sure they are always together. So the caregiver cards help with that. So once the organization joins, they get training, and the training just says, if you see somebody wearing it, go up and say, hey, can I help you today? If they look confused, see if you can help them in any way. Doesn't necessarily get you to the front of any line. But if they do see that you're visual, if they can see you're struggling, they may say, hey, what can I do to help you? And maybe it is getting them through the line a little faster or whatever it may be. Or if you see a mother wearing the lanyard and a child who's having kind of a sensory overload, that might be your clue to go up to her and say, hey, you know what? We have a sensory room and it's over here, a quiet place where you can kind of move away. So all those things are helpful. And it's just a way to help people in a symbol, because one of the things that you see is that you can't tell when somebody has something going on. So this just kind of helps to make that visual.
I love that. Now, and I know the airport group that I mentioned earlier is working with that and doing training, and Tifa Snow has helped a lot with even little videos and stuff to help train TSA. But they're also great for families and people with invisible disabilities, because if you haven't traveled for a while, you don't know what to expect, and so that kind of gives you a little bit of a heads up there. No, I've heard, that this symbol is international, if I'm not mistaken. And I heard that Brazil has now actually legalized the symbol for all people with non-visible disabilities. So that means like grocery stores and libraries and banks and all those every coffee shops, all those everyday places that we go to. How is that being accepted, and how are businesses dealing with this change?
Well, I think that they actually welcome the change because the program is very easy to understand. So when you realize that when you see that wheelchair symbol, it indicates mobility issues for the most part, but that's only takes into account about 17% of people with disabilities are represented by that wheelchair. So this does encompass a large group of people. So when they did this in Brazil, it's been very well accepted because they realize that it's needed. They're very disability aware, and they've adopted it rapidly. I mean, it's growing like wildfire. The day that they signed it into law a few months ago, they projected the sunflower symbol on Christ the Redeemer for 2 hours just to make the country know and let them know there's something going on. So what you'll often see is you'll see the mobility issue next to the sunflower, and it's just an additional sign.
Okay. Have you seen, like here in the States, I would love to see anywhere from home care agencies to adult day to, senior centers and even senior communities talk more about this, because I think people would be really interested in knowing, that this exists. And it kind of reminds me of Norms McNamara, who was living with dementia, who created the purple angel. And it was just a symbol that he gave away for free. And the goal of the symbol was really for people to ask, what is it? So it opened the door to the conversation. And so if people are starting to see people wear this thing, people are going to ask about it and go, oh gosh, I could use that, or my mom could use that, or my neighbor could use that. And, businesses, I think it's just one of those things where if we can get businesses behind this, like Brazil, and not just in travel, but in daily life, because listen, peeps, we travel every day in our own communities, and for some people, that's a real chore. It doesn't have to be going to Europe or Africa or, across the country. It could be going to the grocery store where that travel is difficult for somebody as well. So I love the idea of this being more widely used and recognized, but I'm thrilled that, hotels and airports are really taking this more seriously. Are you seeing that, and it's nice to have it, but are you seeing that they're actually really training their staff? I know you said you had a short video, but staff turnover, and they probably never see that video. Probably whoever is making that decision to get involved with the program does. Do you see them taking more initiative with their staff?
Yes, I do. In addition to just having that short video, they do have posters that are in break rooms, and they have little training pamphlets, and they also put it into their badging process at airports. So I think they have to take that training once a year to keep their badges, and they get it again there. So a lot of airports have done that. And one of the good things about the program is if somebody does go to the airport and they recognize the program and they do not have a good experience, they normally contact us, and then we contact the airport and the stakeholder at the airport, and they are all quick to remedy that and to rectify it and to talk to whatever happened or whatever breakdown there may be and to make it right. So there are going to be those instances where it might happen that somebody didn't recognize it who should have, but on the most part, it's very far and few between. I hear that. A lot of the airports do a great job with their digital signage as well. So if you're walking through an airport that does supply it, you'll just see the sunflower come up on the on the flashing terminals as you walk through. They have the screens, and a lot of them put it there. So the workers do become aware of it, and it's not a complicated sign or symbol. So once you know what it is, you do know what it means. And that, I think, the ease of understanding also helps with the adoption.
I love that. And I would just like to say not all airports have this. I mean, it's been something that's really being pushed, but it seems like people are and organizations are gravitating towards this more, understanding the need for this. In terms of assisting a person with wayfinding in airports and terminals and bus depots, cruise ships, all of that kind of stuff. Have you heard from people who wear these how they feel? Do they feel it's making a difference in terms of how they're being treated and addressed and helped?
Yeah, we do a lot of podcasts and sunflower stories, we call them, that have actual interviews with users who have used the products. And the stories are amazing on how such a small symbol does make such a difference in people's lives. I was talking to a girl who has it on a college campus up in Maine, actually. And she was saying how when she gets so excited when she sees somebody with a symbol on their backpack, because she feels like she's not alone. And she feels like a little sense of community, and they kind of look at each other and smile and, keep walking so it does help form a sense of community. And there's a lot of great stories that you'll hear. And a lot of times people don't have the confidence to do something. They might be afraid to go onto the bus or the train and sit in the seats that are, with the mobility issue sign with the wheelchair, and have people maybe come up to them and say, you don't belong there, and they'll just flash their card and say, yes, I do, I have a brain injury, or I have balance issues, or whatever it may be. So it does give them a little justification as well, and confidence to go out where they might not have in the past.
Yeah, and people do push back on that stuff. If you park in a handicapped spot, that's illegal if you don't have that. But again, with the hidden disability, it's different. I know one day when I was traveling, I thought, well, I've heard that you can go up to the counter and let them know that you have a hidden disability, and you can get seated on the plane early. And I thought, I'm going to test that and see how that works. And I was shocked how smooth that was. No questions asked, and I sat there, and then I kind of felt guilty that I did, but it was like I wanted to test it because it's something that I do talk about with people, and it was really nice. But I also think you need to know your own disability and be honest with it. And getting on early, is that going to cause you more stress because now you're in a confined area? And for some people, it's nice to get settled in early. So again, I think part of it is that. Well, you had also mentioned, Lynn, about the backpack. So we talked about the lanyards. Do you have other products like backpacks or coffee cups that have this on there or anything? Or
yeah, all of our products are wearable products. So we have pin badges. We have silicone and ribbon bracelets, little ribbon pins you can put on, all with the symbol. And in addition to the sunflower with the green background, that means you have a hidden disability, there is also a white version that's I support. Because a lot of times when you roll these programs out and they have a big press conference and you train people, they want to show their support. So we needed to have a way where they weren't all wearing the green ones that indicated they had a visual, that they had a non-visible disability. So we came out with an eye support product, which is very clear. And I think that's also more comforting for people that are wearing the sunflower. If they see somebody with the eye support on, they're able to go up to them and ask their question or be more comfortable. Hey, they really know about this, and get some additional assistance. But all the products are wearable. And that's because too, we want them to be a self-identifier. Nobody has to wear it. Nobody's making you wear it. You put it on when you feel like you need a little help. And if you don't feel like you need help that day, you just keep it in your bag. So it's up to the individual wearer when and where they want to put it on.
Okay. So with the eye support, do you recommend that the care partner or the person traveling with somebody wear that as well?
Yes. And yes, I would say they wear the eye support. And then there's the ability to get the badge at the bottom that says, I am a caregiver. And I think that's very helpful, especially because at most airports, even though TSA does not officially recognize the program because it's a federal institution and they can't, they do work with TSA Cares and they do train the TSA people. And I heard they're exceptional with it at the airports.
Great. Thank you. Lori, you had a question, and then I'm going to throw it back to Lance.
I do. Lynn, as a person living with dementia, and I run dementia discussion groups that we average about 300 people in the various groups. How do I go about getting the sunflower? And is there a cost to me? Because most of us are living on disability, which is not much. And also, how do I know what airports recognize the sunflower?
Yep, you can go onto our website. It's called hdsunflower.com. And there there's a map and you can put in your zip code or you can put in a city where you want to know, are they part of it or what around that area may have the sunflower products. Businesses purchase them and then they give them away for free. If you did want to go online and buy some products, maybe the airport just has the lanyards and you really wanted the wristband or something, or you want to make a customized card for yourself that has your image on it and has symbols of what support you may need on the back, you can go onto the website and upload your image, pick your icons, put in your caregiver's name or your husband's name and number, who to call, and then that card will come to you. And then you wear that on your lanyard. So that would be, a small charge to you. We try to keep our fees down very low as possible for people because we realize that most people are on disabilities. So if you can get the lanyard for free at the airport and you get your customized card, you can put it all together.
So when I go to the airport, if I go up to the ticket counter and give them my little thing that says I'm living with dementia or my card, they then should automatically know to give me the lanyard. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I think that what you need to do is research the airport that you're going to go to beforehand. So I would go to their website. And once you find out from our website, or if you just want to go right to the airport website, I just search for sunflower and it comes up, or you look in their accessible page and they'll normally tell you there, are they a part of the sunflower program and where and how to get your lanyard or your product and what they offer. Some like to mail them to you prior to your trip so that you have them and you're ready to go. Some have, they have them at different counters or different places. So they'll indicate when and how to get one on the website.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I had heard that the information center is more likely to have extra ones than the actual ticket counters, just because they'd have to disperse so many of them. But again, I think going back, Lynn, before I throw it to Lance, I had to steal it back. I had a couple other questions. One was, when I was on your site, I saw like a wheel of all different types of disabilities, and it looked like you could pick what type of disability, and that could be added to your badge as well. Can you kind of tell people the different types? I know you probably won't do them all, but there were so many.
I know. Yeah, I can never do them all because there's a lot. But I mean, anything from POTS, stuttering or stammering. Um, we named some of the traumatic brain injury, Alzheimer's, dementia, deaf, blind, low vision, loss of hearing. There, I'm sorry, there's just any kind of there's IBS, there's a whole bunch of different cards. I think there's about 80 of them now. And then you can go on and you can select that for your custom card. Or you just have the generic card that you get at the airport. They probably have the lanyard with a generic card, and you just simply write your name and information on the back. You don't have to disclose what you want, what your condition is. Part of the program is only disclose it if you so choose. So generally at all the organizations that do hand out products, they use the generic version, because they could never hold all the different versions that it holds. I mean, it could be as simple as anxiety. It's really not age bound or gender bound or disability bound. It is for anybody that feels like they may need it.
Wonderful. Great. Lance, I'll throw it to you for questions.
All right. Thank you, Lori. Jan, I saw you had your hand up.
Yeah, I did. So I just want to, again, do a visual for people on the webinar. So Linda, just show off this. And what I guess from the perspective of my colleague Carol, who is a travel companion, as she is traveling, she will go through the TSA line and say, do you know what this means? So she will question the TSA officer and say, tell me what this means. Or she'll say to the flight attendants, are you aware of the Hidden Disabilities Program? So I think as advocates, if you will, for those of us, we might not have the disability, but I think it's a reminder to take this with us when we travel and be so bold as just to kindly say, I'm just checking in with you. Are you aware of the Hidden Disabilities Program? Because again, as you pointed out, Lori, there's a lot of turnover. They get all kinds of information. And I think the more we can reinforce the great program that Lynn and her team are doing, right in these airports and hotels or whatever, all the better. So that's the only comment I wanted to make. And I will say, I just got back from Portugal and I was in a resort and there was a young man wearing a lanyard. And again, that just delighted me that, we're trying to raise awareness of all kinds of individuals who need the added kindness and support. So anyways, those were my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Jan. Pastor Dave.
Yes, I just wanted to say, Lynn, thank you for sharing this. This is very interesting, and I've heard about it, but I think it's a resource that we're going to start using. But I just wanted to ask, so domestic travel we find is much simpler than international travel, so I'm just wondering, so is this a program, let's say, for instance, in Europe, we often take people, is this a program that is familiar in the European airports, the sunflower symbol and the hidden disability advocates? You mentioned already Brazil, but I'm just wondering if it's familiar in other continents.
Yeah, the program started in 2016 in the UK, and it actually started at Gatwick Airport. And when you fly into London or anywhere in the UK, you see the sunflower lanyard everywhere. It is in 30 different countries right now. There is an office in Dubai that we have. It is a worldwide program. It was at the Special Olympics in Germany. It was part of the Women's World Cup. So in all the different stadiums and countries there, they did recognize the sunflower program. So it is very much a worldwide symbol. And I would say anything, the United States is more on the tail end of recognizing the symbol than being a leader where it kind of started in Europe.
All right, great. Well, that's good to hear. Thank you.
Yeah. I just want to first real quickly say thank you to all of you for your time today and for your advocacy and, sharing your experiences and stories and these wonderful resources. I want to just take a moment to see if anybody had anything else they'd like to add before I turned it over to Lori.
Yeah, a couple things I really want to stress. One is the program TSA Cares. So people with a disability, any type of disability, unique need, should reach out to TSA Care. So you typically around, ideally, at least 72 hours prior to a flight. But if they have a passenger support specialist, they really will do their utmost to help guide a person through the security process, because we know by far it is the most stressful part of the airport experience is dealing with security. And if they don't, it's really important when you present yourself to TSA to ask for a TSA supervisor and say, I need a supervisor. I work as a volunteer in our airport, and I just accompanied a lady who looked like she had a neuropsychiatric condition. And I said, I need a female supervisor to companion this particular person through the security process. And it happened. It was seamless. I think the role of care partners is really speaking up and advocating also that you don't be separated from your person. By law, you have the right to stay with your person. So remember, this is really expansion of the ADA. We're now looking at other types of disability besides physical limitation. The other comment I want to make that I think that care partners are often unaware of is that it's the airline that is responsible for getting the wheelchair transport in an airport. So I think that there's an assumption, I can just call for a wheelchair anywhere. And the reality is you set that up directly with your airline, who will also help you with your seating. So caregivers, care partners should be seated and have the right to be seated with a person that they're traveling with a disability. So those become really important things that I find most people don't know. So I would say work directly with your airline. Do not work with Consolidator. This is not a good idea. You want directly with your airline, even with these low-cost carriers, so that you get these added services. If you need a wheelchair, if you need early boarding, when you need to be seated together. So I think I just wanted to add that because I think those are absolutely essential in planning and orchestrating travel.
Thank you, Jan. Lori, you had a comment?
Yeah, first of all, I think this has just been some absolutely fabulous information from everybody that definitely will be of assistance to people living with dementia, whether they're 37 or 90. So thank you all for that information. I wanted to mention first off that we talked about the senses. And for those of you that take out groups, for me, it's imperative that you not only answer my questions, but give me as much in writing as possible. I need to hear it and see it, or I am not going to remember it. And I'll tell you that right off the bat, I'm not. And secondly, be aware that dementia impacts all senses. We talked about the visual and the audio. Smell. There's many times that those of us living with dementia think we smell a fire. We smell things burning, and we don't. So one of the tricks that I learned actually from someone who sells perfume is to keep some coffee beans in a little container. And when you think you're smelling something, coffee beans helps to clear out your senses, so you're not having that fake sense of smell. And touch. I can feel like I've got bugs on me, or I can feel like someone's touching me when they're not. So I wanted to mention that. But then also, Lynn, as you were talking about the Sunflower program, I do hope at some point that this does become more evident in a number of places. Grocery stores. I can't tell you how difficult it is for me to go to a grocery store. And inevitably, as soon as you think you've got it down pat, they change the whole store around and you have no idea where anything is. My grocery store in Pennsylvania, I met the manager and he talked to his entire staff. And if they saw me in the store, they walked up to me and said, "What are you looking for? How can I help you?" And they would take me to the item. They would then take me to an unopened register and let me check out, because they realized that the beep, beep, beep of the scanning, that goes in my head like crazy. And so if the beep of a scanner goes to my head, imagine what the sounds in an airport do to us. So, but thank you very much. You all had a lot of very valuable information.
Wonderful. Jan, I wanted to have you just define for everyone, because a lot of people probably don't know that you can hire a travel companion. And you're actually, like I said, training, you're certifying senior TravALZ companions. Is it just Alzheimer's and dementia specific, or can anyone really with who wants to be a travel companion, would this be good for?
Yeah, so we're training people to companion adults, all adults with disability, and people living with dementia, right? So different skill sets in many ways, and our travel companions come with different skill sets, if you will. But we really wanted to up the industry, because a lot of it is, well, I took care of my grandma who had dementia. Well, that doesn't mean you're going to be able to take care of the gentleman who has frontal temporal disease and companion, right? So we know that there's a lot of different skill sets that are required. And so we are training people to not only know how to deliver hands-on care, how to transfer people maybe who have spinal injuries and all that sort of thing, how to communicate, how to best keep people comfortable who are living with dementia. But it also includes the travel planning part, right? So not only do they plan the travel and orchestrate it, but as we know, trips rarely run the way we expect them to, right? Weather happens, things happen. And so we need to have very travel savvy people who know how on the fly to make the changes that are needed to make this possible. You know, our goal is that we have people who are older and frail, or people living with dementia who still want to be able to travel but need that added support. You know, as we heard Lori talk about her challenges, right, from not only packing to kind of the disorientation that happens. It's nice to have a partner who can kind of help direct and help take that stress off for that. So we're really looking for people who want to have this sort of experience, who have a love for travel, who have a love for people, and to have kind of a wide variety of people, because I might, as a male, want to have a male companion. Because I'd rather be talking sports, or I'm looking for a certain kind of personality, right? Because it's about the enjoyment of being that. And then we have families who are hiring companions because they want to go to that family gathering, and they want the caregiver, care partner, if you will, to be able to really enjoy and take advantage and make sure that that person who has a disability, whether it's physical or cognitive, that they're not left on the sidelines being ignored, right? Because nobody knows how to talk to them. So the companion's job is to really keep them comfortable and keep them happy. So there's lots of different reasons that people use companions, but our goal is to really train and prepare people who have the competence to not only deliver physical care, but boy, do all the problem solving that's needed when travel happens.
Yeah, and I think that's important. I remember when I was little, my parents, we'd go on vacation, and they would always have a babysitter for us kids to make sure that they could still enjoy the travel, that everybody wasn't tied down. And so I kind of look at it like that. And then also, you know, both with the travel agents and the travel companions, understanding when you're making flights, some, you know, because some agents will book like a full day, and you've got all these connections and big airports or short time for your overlay, and people miss connections, or hotels making sure that they're accessible, maybe even asking if they have alarms for doors if they're worried someone's going to wander out. There's so many things out there that can be really helpful. And one of the things that I want to kind of wrap up with is outlining, we have a ton of resources. Jan's book, Travel Well with Dementia, Essential Tips to Enjoy the Journey. And then DAA, which is an organization, Dementia Action Alliance, has put together pathways to well-being, and it's a dementia manual. And it covers so many different things. It's not travel specific, but there are so many different aspects of it, I think, that could really help when traveling. We have videos. I was shocked. One of the videos was 1 in 10 people in the US have a hidden disability. 1 out of 10. That's high. So this does need to be addressed. So there's videos, there's travel agencies, there are 2 PDFs that Jan put together that are absolutely incredible that you can link out to that'll cover airlines and continence products, which can be an issue for many, many people. Medical transport, GPS technology. I mean, there's so many details that are easy to overlook. And when you put these together ahead of time, it just makes life so much easier. So I'm going to wrap up, and I'm always interested with our panelists in what makes you feel bright about the future of travel. And Dave, I'm going to go to you first.
Well, I just think what comes to my mind right away is just hearing all this. I've learned a lot. I do senior travel, but I've learned a lot from you and the panelists today. So thank you so much. So I'm excited about travel because of these new resources that are available for seniors today and for people of all different ages and people that have disabilities. So thanks for the information.
Great, thank you.
I'll be accessing.
Okay, Lynn, how about you?
I think what makes me excited is hearing all the places that Lori has gone and all the things that she's done and everything she's doing. While she does have, Alzheimer's, so I'm so excited to hear that, and I think it's great, and I hope that we can all model after her.
Wonderful, Lori.
Well, thank you very much. When I was diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's and FTD, I truly thought my travel was over. And as I said, I was quite a travel buff, so that was very disheartening to me. But the more I hear from people such as you that are doing things that you can to help people with any form of dementia or any hidden disability, I'm very encouraged by what our future is going to look like. I deal with a lot of people with dementia who call me from the airport just totally in a meltdown and say, Laurie, help me, what do I do? And I have to take over and help them get a new flight or whatever. And so to know that there are new resources coming out is just very encouraging.
Great, thank you. Jan?
Yeah, I'm just excited that the travel industry is starting to notice disabilities beyond physical limitations. Again, I don't want to take away from wheelchair users, et cetera, or people who need oxygen, but the number of people who do have these invisible disabilities, and to know that there's help and support. And I think, we've got a lot of work as disability advocates to better inform our airlines now, our cruise lines. I think our airports have come a long way, thanks to groups like the Dementia Friendly Airport Group. But I'm excited and work like Lynn's, and then having advocates like Lori who really can speak authentically. I write about it, but I don't live with dementia. I know a lot, but I don't live with it. So I think to combine the knowledge of people in the industry is going to be tremendously helpful. And I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see broad sweeping change.
Yeah, I agree. Every time Lance and I do one of these shows, I always learn so much. And I think, I know this person, I know that person, I kind of know what they're doing and stuff, but I'm always filled with hope. And I think it's just so important to open up the door to these conversations. And I ask our audience to like, click, and share, not because Lance and I are watching the numbers and things, but because there are people in your sphere of influence that really need this information. The holidays are coming up upon us, and a lot of families do travel, and this information would do them well to review prior to jumping on the bandwagon and going forward. And so I want to thank you all. Lance, I'll let you go ahead and wrap up and give us your comment on your thoughts as well.
Well, you stole my comment, Lori, but that's okay. I was actually sitting here thinking I would use the word hope to describe what I would get if I was caring for a family member living with dementia or a disability. Hope if I was the person living with the disability or dementia, and hope for society. Like Lori just alluded to, we talk to all of these wonderful difference makers and influencers and, advocates, and it just shows all of us from every level, however you're touched by this or involved with it, that there is hope out there because, you have the Sunflower program, you have all these different resources that shows you it is still possible, and we still have a ways to go. Like I think Lynn mentioned, we're at the tail end for the Sunflower program, but hopefully we'll get caught up and we'll be right there with the rest of the world and keep making, living with dementia easier and more practical for these families and for their loved ones.
Yeah, and letting hopefully businesses know they can be part of that corporate program with Lynn too, with the Sunflower program. It's not limited to having to be an airport or a hotel. You can be a grocery store, coffee shop, or gas station too.
The mall's another big one. I know those are kind of, historic nowadays, but, we hear stories all the time about situations in malls where a person with dementia goes in and, sometimes the outcome is not very good. But just raising awareness just for your everyday people working in your communities to be on the lookout for these things.
Yeah, Lori just posed a question in the chat box, and she says, is there a way that they can work within their community to encourage the Sunflower program? Lynn, any comments on that?
Yes, there actually are. If you go to the website, there is a place where it says raise awareness, and it provides you with some printouts of flyers and pamphlets and little cards. We do have Sunflower Friends in different states that we actually provide them with printed materials and samples, and they'll go to shows, and they normally work with some of the advocacy groups around them to kind of get people on board, or go to government. We are our very small team here in the States. So what I can do is limited. So the more people we can get to help, and the more kind of friends and advocates that we can get to help us spread the word, it's helpful to us. So please, if anybody does want to do that, you can contact me. I think my information is going to be there. So let me know if you're willing to do that in your community, because I can provide you with the things you need to get that done.
Thank you.
I think it's a wrap then, Lance. This has
Sounds
just been
good,
wonderful. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining us today here at Conscious Caregiving with L&L, where we're tackling the tough conversations. We look forward to seeing you again here next month.